So in this video we're going to look at how we rig a retrievable abseil, which basically means that when we get to the bottom after we've done our abseil we can pull the ropes down and then continue our journey off the crag. When we get to our abseil station, which is here, what we want to do is make ourselves safe by using something called a cow's tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a 120 centimeter sling like this one here. I'm going to hold the stitching out of the way, away from me, and I'm going to do what's called a Lark's foot through the belay loop on my harness. So that's just pass through the belay loop and then pass the other end of the sling through the loop that you've created. Okay, you can also attach your Lark's foot through your tie-in loops on your harness. That works fine as well. There's pros and cons to both. This is totally fine for kind of occasional use and totally safe. So this is my preferred method, Lark's footed through my belay loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a simple overhand knot about this far away from my harness, which is basically going to act as an extender for my abseil plate, and you'll see that in a minute. Then I've got this end which I can get a screw gate carabiner and just clip that into the abseil tat just to keep myself safe while I'm on the edge. Okay, so the advantage of abseiling with a cow's tail like this or an extension is twofold. One, we get to extend the plate away from us when we're abseiling, which means it can't kind of knock up on our Prusik, which you'll see in a little bit. It also means that we have this really handy kind of safety tether just to kind of make ourselves safe on the abseil station. Okay, next thing that I want to do is I want to get my ropes, and we're going to abseil on two 50-meter ropes here. So these are 50-meter half ropes, and that means that we're going to get a full 50-meter abseil, so we can abseil the full rope length. So what we basically want to do is pass one of the ropes, so we'll just take the red rope through the tat or through the mayon that's on the tat. We've obviously checked that the tat's good, checked that the knot's good, checked that the anchor's good, checked that the mayon's good and is properly closed. Okay, then we're going to get the end of the other rope. These have already been pre-flaked here on the ground, so there's no knots in them. What we're going to do is tie a simple overhand knot about this far down, so that's like about 2 feet maximum. Okay, so a nice simple overhand knot to join these two ropes together. Okay, we're going to make sure that that knot is really, really neat. Okay, so there's definitely no kind of weird twists. There's two parallel strands, you know, following each other through the knot. And then what we're going to do to make this safe is pull the blue strand, then the red strand, then the blue strand, then the red strand individually, and that'll just make sure that the knot is nicely seated. Okay, there's loads of other different ways that you can attach two ropes together when you're abseiling, but you know, I prefer this one. It's nice and simple. It just rolls over any edges and any cracks when you're pulling the rope down nice and neatly. It doesn't get caught too often. You know, it just works super well. Okay, we don't want to leave any less tail than this really, so just leave a decent length of tail just to make sure that if the knot does roll, in the unlikely event that it does roll, it can't roll off the end of the rope. But we don't want too much tail, because there have been cases where people have accidentally kind of clipped their abseil plate into the tails thinking they're the main rope, and that's not ended well. Okay, so you know, about foot and a half, something like that seems to work quite well. Okay, so next thing that we're going to do is just bring the knot up so it's up near the mayon, and we'll get both strands of our abseil rope, just check that it's properly threaded through the mayon. Now what we're going to do is get the other end of both ropes, okay, and tie a knot in each end. So just a simple overhand in there, simple overhand in there. That just means if the rope isn't long enough to get us to the ground or to the next abseil station, there's no danger of us abseiling off the end of the rope, which is unfortunately quite a common accident. If you just get in the habit of tying a knot in the end of the rope all the time, even on a shorter abseil, then hopefully when you need to do it on a longer abseil, it'll just be habit, okay, and you won't forget. Just a simple overhand's fine. No need to tie both ropes together. If you do that, they can sort of twist around each other and cause kind of problems when you're abseiling down the line. So we've got a knot in each line. Now what we're going to do is just take a few hand coils, give a little shout down the crag in case there's anyone below. Rope, and chuck the rope down. Just feed all the rope down the crag. There she goes. Okay, we'll get our tails out of the way, so there's definitely no risk of us accidentally clipping ourselves into those. Right, the rope's down the crag, it's properly thread through the mayon. Mayon's nice and tight, tat's all good, abseil station's all good. Okay, so next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get a Prusik cord, like this one, and a screw gate. And we're going to tie a French Prusik around both of the abseil ropes. Okay, if you're abseiling on just a single strand, it just goes around one. So French Prusik just wraps around the rope, nice and neat. Okay, you know, maybe 3, maybe 4, just depends how many wraps you have, depends on how thick your Prusik is, how thick your ropes are, whether you've got a new Prusik, new ropes, wet ropes, icy ropes, all sorts of different factors. Okay, so you just need to play with it and just see, you know, how many wraps you need for your Prusik to work. Okay, so here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps. Okay, we can see it's sort of biting here. Okay, straight away, so it looks like we could be good. And what we're going to do is we're going to clip the French Prusik to our belay loop, screw up the screw gate. What that now does is enables us to pull up some of this rope, which is quite heavy. There's 50 meters of rope down there pulling down. Pull up some of this rope. The French Prusik will now hold that, okay, to enable us to attach ourselves into the rope with our abseil plate. So get our abseil plate, and that's going to go into this loop here that we've created, this extension loop. And the way we thread the rope through the abseil plate is kind of exactly the same as we would if we were belaying a climber. So if you think about it, the climber, or the load if you like, is up here above us, and the part of the rope that we want to lock off when we're abseiling to stop us moving down the crag, if we want to stop, is coming out at the bottom of the abseil plate, so where the grooves are. So the dead rope, the rope going down the crag, comes out at the bottom of the plate where the grooves are. We just clip our screw gate into there. I quite like an oval screw gate on my abseil plate, which means I can just rotate it so it's gravity loaded and there's no danger of that rattling open as I head down the crag, but I'm still loading the screw gate in its appropriate direction. Okay, I'm going to take in all the slack on that so I can feel it nice and tight to my harness, and then take in the slack on my Prusik. Great stuff. Now, next thing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to check that my Prusik works. So I'm just going to lean back. Obviously, I'm still attached with my cow's tail. And what I should find is that my Prusik is biting. If I just put some slack into the rope, I'm holding onto the dead rope. I mean, I am attached, but I still don't want to fall a short distance here. Holding onto the dead rope in case it doesn't bite. Just balancing my Prusik, checking that that works, which it does. Okay. So next thing that I'm going to do, okay, I'm just going to tie a quick knot below my Prusik. It's called a Catastrophe Knot, in case I do something weird. Now, sort of freeze my hands up to undo my cow's tail from the abtat. Okay, my safety tether from the abtat, and then this can either go back just to a gear loop on your harness, or it could go to your belay loop. Well, you just want to make sure that there's some slack in it so it's not kind of pulling at your gear loop, potentially ripping your gear loop off your harness. So just nice and slack. What I quite like to do is work out which of these ropes I need to pull when I get to the bottom of the abseil. So if I was to pull the red rope here, that knot's just going to get caught into the mayon and it's not going to go anywhere. If I was to pull the blue rope, sorry, if I was to pull the blue rope, then that's just going to pull the red rope all the way through the mayon and enable me to pull the ropes down. Okay, so I know that I need to pull blue when I get to the bottom. It's quite likely that I'm going to forget that. Okay, so what I like to do is get this end of the cow's tail here and just clip it onto the blue rope. So when I get down there and I think which rope was it that I needed to pull, I know it's the blue because I've got this reminder. No need to do this up at this point, it's just literally clipped there as a reminder. Okay, so I've got my Catastrophe Knot here in case anything does go weird, but just want to now just do a bit of an idiot check, just make sure everything's all good. So we know the tat's good, the anchor's good, the mayon's good. We've checked the knot is good. Okay, it's properly threaded through the mayon. I've got my ab plate all all properly orientated. So, you know, coming out the right side of the abseil plate, which is clipped into my extension, that's all good. And my girth hitch or lark's foot here is all good, okay. My Prusik I've tested, it's clipped to my belay loop, it works, I'm all locked up and my harness is all good, okay. So everything's fine and I'm kind of good to go, okay. So the next thing that I can do is just reach down, take the Catastrophe Knot out. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to lean back, get my feet nice and spaced apart, and I'm just going to use one hand just to open the Prusik, so just pulling it downwards and start to head off down the crag. And this is a good time to test whether your Prusik is too tight or too loose. Okay, mine seems okay, just holding it open and I'm moving fine. If I was to fall, that Prusik's just going to bite, no problem at all. If I find it's really difficult to move down the crag, it's probably because I've got one too many loops on my Prusik and just come back up and sort that out, making myself safe first with this tether. And that's it, we're good to go. We get to the bottom of the crag, take the knots out at the end of the rope, pull the blue rope, and happy days, we're good to continue our journey.